little complicated.
Probably that one.
Love the honesty. Always be honest. We're scientists.
We can take it. We can take
we
it.
can take it. We prefer honesty. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Well, hey, we're perfect on time. That's amazing. That's a good moment to end official class and transition to office hours. So I will stop. I'm going to resume the recording for this because I think it might be helpful to people and generally speaking. And so viewers, you know, if you're just looking at this, we're going over assignment lookup table. Do you want me to, I can answer specific questions, you guys, or and this is office hours, by the way, or I can just dive in and sort of outline it and explain it, which will take longer, but I'm glad to do it. So it's up to you what you want. I'm just warning you. And let's see the chat. You can see it. Okay, long version or short version. I'm not saying distinct questions, so I'm going to just go ahead and start talking, and you guys stop me by unmuting yourselves because I might not see the chat, or somebody unmute themselves and say there's something in the chat. Okay, so this is what you see on the first page, and this is an image, because an image is just a digital image, I should say, is literally in the computer. It knows that there's a grid that corresponds to your camera. Your camera is also a grid with pixels, actually. That's little compartments where the light hits it. I'll try not to go into unnecessary detail, but to be honest, your camera is like this shape, but horizontal. So I look at this, I'm like, it's not exactly a microscopy image, but close. So there's a rectangle of material that is sensitive to light in your camera, and it is physically broken up into little squares. The whole thing is a rectangle, the chip, the CCD chip. And it's actually, there's Sony chips, they're the same in every camera, even though they sell them to you for different prices. And on that chip, it records how much light hit each pixel. So this is a pixel, this square here. This pixel was hit with intensity 1 of light. This one was hit with no light. 0 means no light hit it. There was no light that fell on it. This one was hit with a dose that we're calling 2 of light. And so the grayscale is just 0 to 256, depending on your camera, or 0 to 4,000 and something, or 0 to 12,000 or 16,000. That just says how many gray levels you can have. And 0 is no light, it's black, it's pure black. And then your highest level, your highest number can vary depending on how much money you spend on the camera, basically. It correlates quite perfectly to that. But for this exercise, because you are not a computer, I acknowledge that, I'm just pretending there's only 40 gray levels. So from 0 to 40, I'm looking for a 40 on here. Did I even include a 40? I don't think I did, but 38, 39, okay, that's close to 40. This piece of the camera chip got the most light. The bigger the number, the more light hit it. And so this got, if this is a linear relationship, this pixel got no light, and this one got 40 times more light. It was 40 times more bright. And so in gray levels, you start from black all the way to the grayest of grays, which we call white, actually, right? And I'm like, where's my histogram in here? And I don't have it because I'm making you do it. Okay, so I think I'm going to call that up from somewhere too. I feel a need to call up a histogram. I might do it on a whiteboard, but let's look at this image for a while. What are you going to do with it? First of all, just stare at it. Go take in that this is a digital image. There's, this portion of the image got a tiny bit of light, almost none. This got none. This also got a tiny bit. This got none. This got a tiny bit. You want to think about that, because that's what I'm having you do in this exercise is you're going to group them differently later. So right now they're grouped from 0 to 40 as, 40 different levels of light, different gray levels, from pure black to white. So, and all the gray levels in between that. Okay. And there's your image. So the first thing you're going to do is create a histogram. A histogram is just counting how many zeros there are, how many ones, how many twos, how many threes. So you're going to go over this image a whole lot of times, and you can have help with this. You can call out to somebody. You can have a little counter, like where you're just on the side of the paper or on your tablet or however you're doing this, where you're like a hatch mark. A lot of times these come in with just, down here, basically, brightness 0. You can just start calling to each other. This is a common way people count by hand. So 0, and then put a hatch mark. And then, so somebody's writing down the hatch marks, the other person's calling out as they go along the image. They're like, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, if you're going to do this solo, I would go for myself. I would find all the zeros. I'd be like, okay, well, now we're counting zeros. How many can I find? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, onwards. If you're doing it with 2 people, you call out 1, 0, 2, 1, 0, 1. And then somebody down here is going hatch mark 0. Oh, a 0. Oh, we got a 1. Oh, we got a 2. We got a 3. Okay. So if you get tired, this is a great example of SAS. For some people, this is going to be like endless fun. In other brains, it's going to be sure torture. And it's a little bit diagnostic as to what fields you want to go into career-wise, slightly, not entirely. But for some people, this kind of stuff is super soothing and meditative. For other people, they're like, I cannot, what? Numbers? I don't like numbers, and they're your friends. They're gray levels, so they're pretty images. So you can collaborate, and if you collaborate, let me know, because we're scientists, we're always honest, and we report things. Be systematic, or your counts will be off. This is not something, unless you have, actually some brains can do this, but most can't. It would be hard to go 0, 0. I'm going to find all the zeros, but I'm not going to go, for most of us, we need to go row by row. There's the occasional artist, I think, who does better jumping around and will remember where all the zeros are that they counted. However you do it, what you want to get to is to fill out this part of the table. So how many zeros are there? That's the number of pixels. Each of those squares a pixel. So how many squares have a 0? How many squares have a 1? How many have a 2? How many, there might be none with a 20. That might be 0. So this is just a count. A histogram is like, how many of something do you have? In the lecture, I talk about how many oranges do you have in your fridge? How many apples do you have in your fridge? Make a histogram. And we've seen histograms for all kind of uses, but we live by it for microscopy. It's everything for us microscopists. Okay. So you can make pencil marks. You can do a little dot to be like, I've counted this pixel already, to keep track. What else do I say? Yeah. Okay. So that's the first thing. Any questions here? I'm going to check the chat or hands, or speak up honestly. If you have any questions, it's easiest if you speak up. I'll just take a second to check the chat. Got it. Thank you. Okay. So that's the first thing you do. Create this histogram. Then you're going to, this is the table for the histogram. Again, this is something that when we look at it, our minds don't process the info. We need it drawn out. For us, a lot of times to understand something, we need to see the picture literally. Like here, I don't look at that and know exactly what it is. Well, it's interesting. I do now because I know what it is. And I'm like, how does anybody not see that? But I know the first times I approached this, I was like, this is just a jumble of numbers. Now I'm like, oh, the shape is so clear. It's so clear what that is. Um, okay. But for most of us, we need a picture. So this is not a picture. This is a list of numbers. Let's make it, turn it into a picture. This is we're going to create a chart. And on this side are those levels of brightness from 0 to 60, but you only, I think, have to go up to 40. This is just wasted paper over here. And on this side is the number that you counted. So you're going to find the point where, let's say you counted 16. My pointer's showing much. You counted 16 zeros, then you make a nice dot for that. Then how many ones did you count? You're going to use this half line, or just sort of approximate it. Oh, I counted no ones. It's going to come down to here. How many? Let's see if I can annotate. Oh, I can actually. Let's play with this computer. So let's say you found 20. I'm using my MacBook, so I'm not actually good at drawing on that. That's too big of a dot, but you get the idea. And then let's say for ones, I didn't find any. So I'm going to come down and make a point here. And then for twos, how many of those boxes, those pixels had a 2? 14 of them did. Whoa! Let's erase that. What happens if I hit stamp? Oh, look, I can put a star. Let's try. How many 2s did I have? I had 14. Let's put a star there. Oh, I like that. How many 3s? And then how many 4s? Let's say I have 16 4s because we're doing the stamp. And then I'll do whatever number. And so you're going to go through the whole thing. How many 6s do I have? Maybe I have whatever. And in the end, you're going to, put all those points up to 40. So you're going to have 40 points. And on a scale, this is the brightness levels, up the higher up, the more pixels that, this is, I'm like, as I'm saying that, I'm like, that's wrong. Oh, right. Okay, good. Because this is the brightness levels. This is black. How many black pixels do you have? And this is how many, really it's dark gray and light gray. So how many dark gray pixels do you have? And then how many medium grays and how many light grays, barely gray. And then you're going to make a line, because this is already better. You can kind of see, like here, let me just go through the whole thing, and I'm going to just stamp it quickly with random stamps to invent something. This is not how your actual chart is going to look at all, anything like it, but I'm just doing a thing. So this is how, because remember, you can look at the histogram and know kind of what type of image it is, and is it a good image, is it not a good image, and where's 40? Okay, so let's say you put all 40 points on this chart. Then and again, if you're doing this on a tablet, you can do it like I'm doing. It's still doing it by hand because you're looking at each one and thinking about it. Okay, now let's connect the dots, literally, or the stars in this case. And let's see if I can do that decently. Oh, okay, why is it making such a fat line? For heaven's sakes. Okay, go back to thin line. Let's undo that. Okay. It would be easier by hand than on this thing, but at least it's letting me do it. Okay, really badly, you would just draw an actual straight line rather than what I was drawing. But there you go. You're gonna connect, and then I have to do it this way. Okay. Whoops, sorry. It's kind of. I'm not going to take up too much time to draw it perfectly, but you get the idea. You're connecting. You're making the chart out of it. And then it drops down to none at 40. Oh no, actually I don't want it to drop here. Let's erase it. Ah, erase the whole thing. Okay, this is why it's faster by hand. Let's just do that again. So what you're drawing now is the histogram. And this is something that every digital image gives you. The computer, and the computer gives you, now I've noticed even on my iPhone, I think I can get a histogram, but it's really, really important in microscopy. All microscopy software will let you see the histogram, which is basically data analysis of your image. And what is it's telling me when I look at this image is there's a lot of spots that are quite dark, and then there's medium gray, almost nothing. And then there's a few bright spots. And notice this, if you remember from the lecture, because it goes up at the end, this is probably a saturated image. In other words, a bad image. I drew it on purpose. I'm like, let me show you a bad image with a shakily drawn histogram. I don't care if yours is shakily drawn. I just want you to go through the exercise of, charting this out. So this is a chart of, come on, scroll out. Oh, I'm still annotating. Hold on. Unannotate. Go away, annotations. Sorry, it just carries the annotation with it. So these values that you counted, you are using now to create this chart. Okay, I'm up. Pause for a second and see if you have any questions at this point. Do you guys see the chart with stars that I drew? I hope you do. That doesn't stick to the thing. Good, yes. Okay, thank you, Marie Teresa. Okay, that is, so you've got this. Then we'll come back to it. And I say down here, let's say the camera's dynamic range is 0 to 70. Are you using the full dynamic range? So the dynamic range is how many gray levels. So 0 to 70, we're only using 0 to 40. So the answer to that is, type in the, let's see, where's the chat again? The answer to that is, okay, well, it's no. Okay. Because you're only using 0 to 40, and when you could have used 0 to 60. There's a common thing that happens that the histogram tells us. If there were only 40 gray levels, we would say this is saturated. It's the end. Now that I think about it, if we're saying there's 60 or 70 gray levels, we just kind of put the image all on one end of the histogram for no good reason. Okay, so now we're at 3. Use a different colored pencil or line to draw the lookup table. So what is the lookup table and where do you find it? The lookup table is the histogram is your image. It changes for every image. You're going to get a different histogram. Every single image you ever take will have a slightly different histogram. A fluorescence one will look kind of like this, a good one, but it'll come down and you'll leave a little room here. So noted 39 only. Good. You got it. Okay, so the lookup table, it's really helpful to have the lookup table on the same chart as your histogram. And that's how the microscopy software is going to give it to you. And you have like the power to do everything. Once you almost don't look at the screen anymore. Sometimes I forget to, I'm like, oh, look at the screen, look at the actual picture. Because I'll sit over here fussing around with a histogram in the lookup table. You're going to get to do this a lot on the Olympus scopes. It's going to be really, really, this will all be super useful once you start face to face. You sit there and you basically change the intensity, the brightness of the light, how long you keep the shutter open, and you're just kind of going, okay, good histogram, bad histogram. Let me get a perfect histogram. I got it. Yes, now I'm going to snap the image. Okay, the lookup table it's a table also, and it's only two X and Y, kind of two values. So you're like, how is this? it can look like a histogram. You just have to know that this one is the lookup table and not the histogram. What does a lookup table do? It's the instructions to the computer of how you're going to display each gray level. And you might think, what do you mean instructions? Doesn't the computer know if it's a gray level 0, then there's no light, it's black. And if it's gray level, whatever number, higher number, 60 or 70, just to make it up, that's pure white, and everything is in between in even steps. Like, why does the computer need instructions? And the answer is because computers always need instructions, but also because you can play around with the instructions, and you will, and you want to, and there's really good reasons to do that. But sometimes there's also bad reasons, and you shouldn't do that. And this is, by the end of the course, you'll know like when it's okay to mess with a lookup table, the LUT, and when not. So this is what we call a linear lookup table. 0 is 0, 1 is 1, 2 is 2, 3 is 3, 4 is 4, 5 is 5, 6 is 6, 7 is 7, 8 is 8, 9 is 9, 10 is 10. Before I understood what the software was doing that I was using, I never even thought about the lookup table, to be honest. That's why, unfortunately, there's no like other lessons in this anywhere that I can find that are any good. There's like lessons in engineering classes that I've tried to listen to. I'm like, I don't know what they're talking about. Too much math. I love math, but not always. So anyway, 10 is 10, 11 is 11, 12 is 12. This is what I thought the computers were doing. And the answer all along, like, why are they going to mess with my data and show it to me differently? The answer is yes, they do all the time, most of the time. But fortunately, our scientific images, our cameras that we use scientifically tend to have the ability to show us 0 is 0 and 1 is 1 and 2 is 2. So we'll start with that. That is called a linear lookup table. So the instructions to the camera in that case is, let's get a new, I'm going to draw on this. Let's get a new color. Color. Let's get a nice bright red. And let's see if I can do this actually. No, it's not good. It's making me hand draw again, which you're in trouble now because I forgot. Oh, not too bad. So this is how you would chart out or draw basically a linear lookup table. You can see I'm trying to aim for the corners there. This should be a straight line. It's not because I drew it, but it's actually not bad considering my skills in this arena. So this is a lookup table. 0 is 0, 1 is 1, 2 is 2, 4 is 4. So 4 over here. Oh, this is, I didn't do it. Did I? 1 is 1, 2 is 2. Oh, so these numbers, I was wondering about this 2 refers to this line. This 4 refers, so the number refers to the line above it here. Because it just, I don't know why it's showing up as fat. So 6 over here is 6 down here. So 6 is 6, 8 is 8, 10 is 10, etc. And you'll get this perfect 45-degree angle line. And that's reality. That's like not changing your image at all. That's preserving it as you snapped it when you sat at the camera. Now, when you sit at the scope at the camera, you're messing around with it a lot. So it's not reality as the specimen is, but it's reality as you captured it. And the computer's not adding any processing. It's not messing around with your image at this point. It is just showing to you exactly what you captured. Okay, so this is a linear lookup table. Linear, like it's a flat line, not a flat line, but it's a even line. It's a straight line. And why is this not going down? To stop annotating. Okay, and there's the histogram for that particular image. The linear lookup table is going to be used on basically the lookup tables on all the images, so you can sit there with one lookup table and just look at all the images, or you can, because we're talking microscopy, you can mess with the lookup table, but that's next. But to the first part is you draw the linear lookup table, and it's going to look like this. I will tell you, it's linear. And then step four, step four is the dreaded step four, where you go back and take some time over this image and draw it in, right? Like we discussed before. And then looking at this, you're not going to know what this is a picture of. Neither can nobody can know. That's just telling you, you've got some dark pixels, some almost no medium pixels, and some um, bright pixels. The actual histogram that you draw will be quite different than this one, but the lookup table is exactly this one, this red line. So then you go back and you color the image, which you can't see any, but do that part. And then, do you have any questions about that? Because if not, I'm going to move on to the second part. We're almost done now. But let me see in the chat if there's any questions about drawing it, filling it in. Question 4 here. And then once you draw it, you will be able to tell what, I hope, what the picture is, with the hint that I made this around Christmas time one year. I mean, December. There's a small letter in the image. What is it? And you'll also, that will pop out to your eye. Your eye will be able to interpret it. Now, okay, when you lookup table. Yeah, so this chart, you're using this info, which you've generated, this table to draw the green line, shall we call it, on this chart, just to be clear. And then you're using, it says use the linear lookup table from here, to draw it back on this chart. You're kind of flipping pages is what I'm getting at. And then you're going back to the first page, and now you're drawing it in, and then you're going back to this page and you're answering the questions, and then you're done with the first part of it. And let me just see if there's any questions in the chat. All still awake, still here. Some people are okay. Good. I'm going to go on to the last part, which is now you did everything, normal and the expected linear lookup table, as it's called, the classic, the ever useful. I always like to start with that, basically. Your software knows that, so it will give it to you as a default. It will reset to a linear lookup table. It's good that way. By your software, say kind of all the microscopy softwares do that, which is nice. Okay, so now we're going to do something different. We're going to mess with this lookup table. Now we had the basic thing. Now we're going to get jazzy and weird. And I'm going to give you a new lookup table where the instructions to the computer are, if it's 0, display it 0. Okay, not controversial. If it's 1, display it as 0. Wait, what? But you're lying to me, computer. That's the way I feel. I'm like, it's gray level 1. There was a little bit of light. Why are you calling it 0? This is what I was hinting at when I was kind of looking at the image. I was like, 1 is kind of practically 0. I mean, it's like very dark gray and quite dark gray. Why don't we just lump them together? I want to have less gray levels and more contrast. I don't want it to flow so nicely. I want it to jump. I want to turn a lot of these, very dark grays into just completely darkest gray. That's it. There's no light at all. If you have no light hit you, or if you have level 9 of light hit you, a few photons, I'm just going to call that all. I'm going to lump it together and call it all a 0. And this might be a really bad idea or might be a really good idea. And it just depends on knowing your specimen and knowing what you're doing and understanding what you're doing and what a lookup table and histogram is. And a lot of this is the art of microscopy, just sort of knowing when this is a good idea and when it's not. Then I go to the middle and I have to sort of scale up. So there was a 19, I'm now calling it a 28. For those of you who remember this kind of stuff, this slope is steeper now is what we're doing. We're making a flat slope and then a steeper slope, but you'll see it visually in a moment. And then, so I basically gave totally new seemingly random, but they're not actually random instructions to the computer. And and this is a new lookup table for that same image. We're going to take that same image, this image on page 1. We're going to take this image, and we are going to not use this red lookup table. We're going to use a new lookup table. So we need to transform it. So for this part, I give you, oh wait, I'm losing track of the pages myself because I'm distracted by the pretty drawing. Okay, so that was a linear lookup table. We're now on to part 2B, contrast stretch. So it's called a contrast stretch when you do what we're exactly doing. Basically, you take the ends and you flatten them. You can flatten one end like we're doing here where everything black, blackish, so to speak, becomes pure black, true black. And then you can also flatten this end. I don't think I do that in this case, but it's something you can also choose to, yeah, I don't flatten this end. You can also choose to do, and it's up to you. And what you will see, what you should see, is that your image gets really contrasty. There's a contrast comes from a jump between gray levels. So the more something, one pixel is super black and the other is really mid-tone gray, then there's contrast. But if the one pixel is super black and the other is nearly super black and the other is pretty black and the other is, quite black, then you're going to see a smooth image. You're going to, your eye will be like, oh, that's so soothing and smooth, but I can't quite make out what everything is sort of black and gray and dark gray and not sure what I'm looking at. So sometimes we want to give a jolt of contrast and really make things stand out, depending on what we're looking at, what info we're trying to get. Okay, so let's do that. Let's make things all super contrasty. And so for the sake of simplicity, I'm not going to have you do the whole image. I just picked a smaller piece of the image, and you're going to do the contrast stretch on this. And what you're going to do, so I think at this point, I'm going to get rid of this drawing. We'll just do a different drawing. Let's see if I can do that. Clear all drawings. Okay, good. So this is another thing where you handcraft it. And no, don't draw. Okay. So you're going to go into this image and use the lookup table, and you're going to draw the the number on here. So for instance, let me just do it. So for number 3, I'm going to draw in a big 0 here. Can I get the annotate back? Draw. Okay. So I'm going to draw a 0 because according to our new instructions, we're going to display any 3s as 0. We're also going to display 0s as 0. So I'm going to write 0 in here. And you're playing computer in this a lot. Sorry, I can't make my zeros nicer, but you get the idea there, a 0. That's a 0. I don't know what a 14 is because I haven't memorized the lookup table, nor should anybody ever. But let's, let me scroll back to it. So again, flipping pages. Yes?
It's 18.
Oh, thank you. My brain was like thinking you were telling me the time, and I was like, is that a time? Yes, exactly. This is where you can collaborate again. Thank you for helping out. So let me draw it as 8. Why? 8. Okay. 18. Okay, there. And 0 is 0, 0, 0, 0. Anyway, this is getting boring. What is 29?
29 is 48.
48. And so you're going to go through and do this by yourself or with some music in the background or with other people, but go through and do a new, these are the values that are getting displayed, okay? So it helps to just put it in here because otherwise, I mean, there's other ways to do this, but I think this is the quickest way. So you're going to have your new values, the display values with this new fancy lookup table. And then you're going to use the ones that you've just drawn in to create a histogram. So before you were counting how many threes on the printed numbers, now you're counting and how many zeros, how many ones, how many, now you're going to count how many zeros there are in the new regime, so to speak, with the new lookup table, at how many 18s, how many 48s, same thing, basically. And you're going to fill out the table. Oh, where is it? So you're going to put it here. So your brightness is 0, whatever. This is the same. Where's my contrast stretch? Fortunately, the tables get looking very similar, so you have to look carefully at this. This is a contrast stretch table. So the original level, I don't know why I didn't put that in for you guys, but it's this 1, 2, 3, up to 40 still. Wait, there was a 48? Oh yeah, because I make it go to 70. That's what I did. Okay. And then right, so sorry, I'm even getting confused myself. Take this display level. So these are your levels now. 0, 10, 12, 14. That's why I didn't type it in because it's different. Okay. So take these numbers and you've drawn them on here and then write them in here. 0, 12, 14, 20, whatever the new possible brightnesses are that you have, and then count how many you have of those. So basically, you can either grab the brightness levels from these display levels here because they're going to be these, or you can actually just do it by like, okay, I have zeros. Do I have any ones? No. Do I have any twos? However, whatever works for you. But you're going to do the same thing of creating a histogram, which is a count of how many zeros do I have? How many ones do I have? You won't have any ones. Don't even bother to count them. How many 12s do I have? How many 48s do I have? How many 18s do I have? And over here, you're writing, brightness 0, which is, true dark, true black, high, deepest gray, whatever you want to call it. It's 0. It's our North Star, so to speak. Because 0, I love 0. We love black because it's always in your image. It's always black, and I know that 0 is black. And then I don't know whether 256 is midtone gray or is it depends on the camera. Basically, the other end of it is confusing, but 0 is always 0 and beautiful. So how many zeros do I have? So 0 is the brightness. How many pixels? You're gonna have a lot more, right? Because we kind of turned a lot of things into 0. We made a lot of things absolute black. And then how many 48s do I have? It'll be somewhere down here. I have this many. So you're counting things again. How many oranges? How many apples? How many grapes? And then you're gonna put it on. You're gonna do it on here. So you're gonna draw your histogram again, which will look. Since you're patiently watching this, I'll give you a big hint. It will look something like your actual histogram. Will actually be easier to draw. Will look something like this. Oh, it's not going to have, I mean, you'll do straight up and down lines, but actually it's maybe lower like that, like something like that. So that's your image, that one image that you're working on this whole time. And then you're going to also draw your lookup table on here, just like you did before. Now, so the original lookup table that you drew that you're not going to draw on here, but just to remind you, was linear like this, right? This time you have a contrast stretch lookup table. So let's undo, let's take that away. It's not linear. It's a weird lookup table. And in the case of the lookup table that I give you, I think it stays at 0 is 0, but so is 4, so is 8, so is 12, and then it takes off after that, or some point. I can't quite remember the inflection point, and it will go off and off. Let me keep drawing. Anyway, it's not quite that long, but you get the idea. Okay, so sometimes you can flatten out up here too, but I think there I just have you flatten out the bottom here, make everything black as much as possible, toss it into the, it's just black, keep it black. In the case of fluorescence, black is the background. We're looking for the signal over here. So here, and we love a nice solid black background. What it will do is, well, you'll see. I mean, if you're getting it picky, you're down here, like there are some values that'll be black. But anyway, that's just a detail. Let me turn the scroll. So that's it. You've pretty much, once you've done that, that is the last thing that you do, if I recall, except for answer a couple of questions. Oh, I set the black level at 10, not 12. Okay. So what I also want you to know that these questions are, I mean, well, that one is a clear yes. Are you now using 0 to 70? Yes. Is there more contrast in the image? There should be. Oh, I take it back. I do make you do one more thing. I make you go back to the original, no, the smaller version of the original image and draw it again, because that's how you're going to see. So you do go back here and once again draw, but this is a lot quicker because now, to be honest, you know what the image is and it just goes a lot faster. So then coming down to, what's this not? The questions. Is there more contrast? There should be. Is the appearance of the image now altered in any way? If so, how? It might have a different shape, or you can just say, again, sometimes I ask you the same thing over twice just to really make a point of it. You can say, well, there's more contrast. And you can say that allows me to see or not see certain things. Certain things may disappear, may appear, it depends. And do you think setting the black level at 10, which is something you're going to do constantly on the scopes, by the way, is set the black level. You're almost always doing a contrast stretch when you're imaging, at least a simple one like this. Do you think it was a good idea, basically? Was it appropriate? What do I mean? When I ask you these kind of open-ended questions, I almost always want you to have an opinion, and there's no right answer, just so you know how I kind of ask questions. Any answer will do as long as you answer me here, because it's completely debatable. There's no way of saying whether, like sometimes it's appropriate, sometimes no. So in the case of this image, it depends on what you think about how the image was altered. Do you think that was a good alteration, or do you think it was worse? Or you can always say, I think there's no way to know, or I don't have an opinion about that. That's still an answer. I don't want you to answer me like a scientist, which is basically scientists are always ready to argue and have opinions, but they don't have to be strongly held. Okay, smiles. Good. And then for extra credit, you can have a computer do this. Because sometimes students are like, but I know I want my computer to do it. And I'm like, okay, as long as you've done one by hand and your brain has been trained, and it will be so much easier when you're on the scope to understand what you're doing, because you're on the scope. You can literally take, you can still see this, right? So you can literally take this red line. You're going to see your histogram because that's what it is. That's your image. It will change depending on the specimen you're putting under there, but that you don't control. I mean, when you made the specimen is how you control it. But once it's made, that's what it is. That's what this image, that specimen's going to give you. But when you're imaging, what you do have control over is the lookup table, and you can actually very easily click and create just super in not even a second. You know, here's one lookup table, but I can pretty much instantly on a computer create, oh, I thought it was a different color, sorry. But, you know, I can make everything black. If I so choose, you'll kind of see your image disappear, but I'm going to have you play around with this. But, you know, so is that a good idea? Probably not. I'm not seeing any of this stuff. you can do, you can make this not a line, you can make it a curve. That's called a gamma, and it's actually sometimes really good to do. And we'll play with that on scopes till you get, but you won't, if you do this first, you'll know what you're doing on the scope, basically. That's my whole point for having you do this. So I'm gonna take all these out, and I think I am done, unless you have any questions at this point. Let's see. Yeah, we've covered the whole assignment. Good, good. It's interesting when I teach these classes because I don't know if any of you are photographers and want to tell me I'm wrong, which would be fine and interesting to me. But oh, good, Maria Teresa, excellent. But people who are already photographers know this stuff because I did record this for everyone. Yes. And I will post it. Photographers tend to know this stuff, but everyone else, and I didn't know it. I was on a microscope for years before I finally figured this out. So I'm just going to tell you that when you go into your jobs, and this is stuff that the slide scanner, those of you in histotech will be doing a lot, and you need to understand what the slide scanner is up to and why maybe an image, these are the kind of settings that you can mess with and get bad images. And so you will be a magician who understands what's going on, whereas people will be like, oh my God, like it's not working. Like just reset the lookup table. And they're like, whatever, we're calling you and giving you a raise. That's our plan for you, basically, to be that person in the lab who understands what's going on when things don't work or give weird images. Because they do a lot of the time, no matter how much you spend on a slide scanner. All right.
Thank you so much. I know it's late. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
for
you, Prof.
asking.
Thank you for your time.
Aw, thank you. Okay.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night.
Bye, Prof.
Good night to everyone.